Now, Global South Africa, or rather Global South Against Xenophobia, has raised concern about threats made to Nicole Fritz and her children. This for her involvement in the Zimbabwe Exemption Permits litigation. It allowed our northern neighbours to legally remain in the country without visas. Government has now decided to terminate the system at the end of June. This means almost 200,000 Zimbabweans may be deported if they have not secured proper papers. Let's discuss this further now with Roshila Nair of the Global South Against Xenophobia. Roshila, thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. Just firstly, I know that this is something that you raised concern about because you saw it making the rounds on Twitter, people threatening Ms. Fritz on Twitter, and you think maybe, things that are done on social media will actually be done to her physically, her address, for instance, and where she stays being discussed on social media like that.
Yes, thank you very much. We are indeed very concerned about Nicole and her daughter who were singled out on the Twitter post. And that is because we have seen in the past how social media has been used to stir up or incite violence against vulnerable people and against activists. And we are very concerned about this because the threat is very palpable. There was discussion around it with other people on social media. And we decided that, in the past, other social justice activists, human rights defenders have been threatened in regard to xenophobia as well. Last year, a few women from the Human Rights Foundation, from Kopaneng, Africa, were threatened, and one of the male comrades as well, just for raising the issues of xenophobia and human rights defense. And we just think that this is completely and utterly unacceptable because this is a democracy. We have the right to participate, and we can't expect people to be sitting ducks on social media and to let it go, without being addressed by the authorities.
And just a reminder to the viewers, Nicole Fritz is in fact the director of the Helen Suzman Foundation, which is a friend of the court in terms of fighting against the Zimbabwe Exemption Permits and what the Home Affairs Department has suddenly decided to do. So in terms of the letter, I see you've written a letter to many government stakeholders or government officials, senior ones, including the police minister, for instance, and General Elias Mawela of Gauteng. You've written to the chairperson of the South African Human Rights Commission, etc. Have any of them responded to you to say they'll have a look into this?
Yes, just to say that the Helen Suzman Foundation is in fact a litigant in the case. And on behalf of 178,000 Zimbabwean exemption permit holders whose permits have been cancelled. So yes, we laid a complaint last week Friday to the Human Rights Council, and yesterday first we received a notification from the Mr. Mbeki, who's the head of the Gauteng, the human rights, and then yesterday we got a call from the head of the SHRC, Commissioner Majola, who's taking it very seriously, and he's already written a letter to the minister. So we're very happy about that. We also got a response from the police in Gauteng this morning, and we are responding to that in terms of their queries.
All right. And
we're quite pleased that it's being taken seriously.
And I see you've even written all the way to the Portfolio Committee on Police in Parliament and the Portfolio Committee of Home Affairs, which that would be a very important stakeholder because at the end of the day, the Helen Suzman Foundation is actually going against their decision.
Yes, absolutely. And, the portfolio committees are there to do oversight on the ministries, on the officers. So it would be very important for them to weigh in and to see how these policy decisions and how they're being handled actually impact on the way in which ordinary citizens, civil society, and people who are impacted by it, who are opposing, opposition to the cancellation, are interacting, because at the end of the day, our argument is we're not against, policies. We're not against issues being raised by DHA. If they want to collect stats, for instance, they perfectly we're perfectly okay with that, but it's the manner in which it is done. It seems very threatening and punitive. We feel that these are the kinds of things that the portfolio committees should also be looking at. And in these interventions that we're asking them to make, we're hoping that they can bring some reason and caution to the way in which these interventions by the department, or these processes by the Department of Home Affairs, are rolled out to the public.
Just lastly, Roshila, what do you make of threats like this, of this kind of nature, that are intimidating and a violation of someone's privacy, becoming a bit more popular on social media? I mean, I remember a certain colleague of mine, God rest her soul, Karima Brown, was also threatened on social media. She was threatened with rape. They released her address, her phone number. People started calling her. What do you make of this looking like it's a trend that's growing?
It is a growing trend. It is very worrying. We have the POPI Act, which prohibits people from just, publishing people's addresses. There's also the law, the Constitution, that makes it explicitly clear that you cannot threaten people. You can be arrested for that. And that is why we decided to make a case about this. And I want to repeat that last year we had other women and the Mayor Comrade who were threatened as well, all of them doing anti-xenophobia work. And, the justification from the people who are against immigrants is that, people are coming here to steal jobs, etc. And that's not true. We are saying if you have questions or concerns, raise it in the democratic space through democratic processes. But social media and the space is not being used for that. It is being used to threaten people, to incite violence against them, to target them. And we saw that with the July unrest as well. And we have to say to the authorities, we have to say to the public, you need to be aware that this is criminal. It is not acceptable. And especially the way in which it is used, I want to raise this, especially in terms of how women are targeted. They're seen as soft targets. Their families, their children, are targeted. As in the case of the late Karima Brown, she was threatened with rape. Those are the kind of things. I mean, we've just referred to a few here, but if you really open the doors and ask people to come in to, report these things, you'll hear that it is hundreds of cases that happen every year, and it's just not acceptable. Civil society is the cornerstone of a democracy, and when it starts impacting your activists and your community leaders, we have to stand up and say no to it. Yeah. So yes, it's a serious concern, and I do hope that the media uses its avenues, to educate people about this, because ignorance cannot be an excuse as well.
Well, it's also about the fact that people should understand that your rights should not go against another person's rights, right? Just because you have a right to access social media and the right to express yourself, it doesn't mean that you have a right to threaten another person and violate them. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Roshila Nair. She is from the Global South Against Xenophobia.